would say for the t-shirt she had made for me at one point, the man, the myth, and the legend. I guess I'll read this Margaret Randall piece first.
No, do your own stuff. I'll ask you to do that.
Okay, all right. Let's see. I have a book that's been put together. It's called Woke, W-O-K-E exclamation point. And Aaron was very influential. In fact, he wrote the introduction, actually. Okay. Sorry. Just bear with me for a minute. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for those of you who don't know. Lamont Steptoe was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Steptoe served in Vietnam from July 1969 to December 1970 as a scout dog handler with the United States Army. He is recipient of the Bronze Star, has written 3 collections of poetry dealing with his war experiences. They are Mad Minute, Dusty Road, and Uncle South China Sea Blue Nightmare. Larry, Mad Minute had an influence on Larry. Steptoe is an American Book Award winner for his collection A Long Movie of Shadows. Lamont Steptoe is also the recipient of a Pew Fellowship in the Arts and is an inductee in the International Hall of Fame for Writers of African Descent by the Gwendolyn Brooks Center of Chicago. Steptoe's work appears in over 100 anthologies. He has read his work in Nicaragua, Holland, Lithuania, France, and India. He is a father and grandfather, and he's published 16 collections of work. Aaron mentioned the late poet Etheridge Knight. Etheridge used to say, you know, if you're not stirring up trouble with your poems, you're not doing your job. And, you know, Etheridge lived in Philadelphia for 3 years. We hung out, drank beer, smoked reefer. Stuff that some poets do. And it was an honor to meet another war veteran, because Etheridge was 16 years old when he ended up in Korea as a medic. He lied about his age. And he began to be so traumatized by what he was witnessing that he began to use the morphine on himself. When he got out of the military, he turned to heroin, and to support his heroin habit, he began to be an armed robber, and he did 8 years of hard time in an Indiana State prison, and his first 3 books were published while he was behind bars. One of my own poems. I've been writing since I was 10 years old. I'll be 74 on February 9th. Alchemy. The first word that intrigued me when I was a child, the first word that called me into mystery and magic, the first word that made me don the armor of a knight. Alchemy. I was born to scar a page of history with the mystery of my life. I was born to be a warrior, a rebel, a truth teller, a prophet, an outlaw, a madman, a troublemaker. I was born to show you how a human becomes divine. One of the great things about being an Aquarius is we have these fantastic memories. My late sister was a Scorpio. Scorpios have fantastic memories. I can go back to those front porch steps of my childhood anytime I want. Sit there as a child, the muted voices of adults, background music to the dreams I have in my head. Filled with wonder, I am restless, eager to seek out playmates for games and exploration. I am full of joy because Mama is alive. No one has died. No one will ever die. Mama's voice. Mama's voice rounded us children up at night, just as darkness began to stretch its limbs. Out of her mouth issued our names, one by one. We heard and obeyed. When I was a junior in high school, I had the same advanced composition teacher as the writer John Weidman. We're both from Pittsburgh. John's brother, David Weidman, was one of my classmates. But when I entered her class and she saw my literary gift, she told me, there were several things she told me to do. One was to read James Joyce. Another was to read Ernest Hemingway. Another was to read Thomas Wolfe. Another was to read Dostoevsky. And I did all those things. Like the writer Thomas Wolfe, I too grew up in a boarding house. Strange men, strange women, under the same roof. Some were widowers, some just old men, holy as a prophet, quoting scripture. We lived on the 3rd floor. Mama, my sister, my younger brother, and I. Aunt Minnie lived on the 2nd floor, where another room had a roomer. We was Poe. Notice I said Poe. 2 porter with 4 D-O and E-R. Spirits walked in our bones. St. Michael had the front door, and Jesus Christ patrolled the block. I'll just read 3 more. Back in the day, children were raised differently. You know, I mean, I told some people, if I had ever called my mother by her first name, you'd have never met me. You'd have never met me. Old folks used to tell us children when we were getting on their last nerve, I'll smack you into the middle of next week. Damn, what did they know about time travel? Whatever you was doing to make them talk like that, you stopped. You didn't want to do no time traveling. It scared the hell out of you. It scared the life right out of you. Okay. The only clue the old folks had about my strangeness was I always had my head in a book, or I was moody. Moodiness that would last for days. And there are other ways, like knowing what I knew when I knew it. Much of me was still a child that played cowboys and Indians or soldier in a war. And I captured butterflies, bees, and lightning bugs like other children. I always felt different. I always felt I came from far away. So far away, it wasn't on Earth. It was in the stars. And I'll end with this. I was born in the 7th month of pregnancy. They didn't expect me to survive. At the beginning of my life, I lived in a glass coffin. Unlike Lenin in Red Square, I could move, gaze at the shapes dressed in white that visited at all hours. I needed oxygen. The air outside was insufficient. I was a new arrival from another world. What was it Mama felt while she waited to take me home? I have never written of this in my earth life until now. As a child who knew what he knew when he knew it, I was marked as a strange one, a knowledge seed, a mystery from an unknown galaxy, trapped in history. And I'll read Margaret Randall's poem now.